Check. I played the outside, watched as time flawlessly handed out every blessing. I slept for 3 winners in case of no wasted efforts. At best I'm guessing whatever second will do for now. In the crowd feeling like I'm the only one hearing doubts. My Jordan Peele shit just streaming and getting out. Emotionless intentions, magicians making up clout. 6 years deep, just seeing what shit's about. I can see the phony through waters from every eye. We ain't come commercial like them on the other side.
How's it going, guys? I know it's been a while. It's been quite a long time since my last video, but I'm working on some things that I want to start getting going for the channel, I guess, and hopefully we'll be on a much better schedule now that we've gotten our eggs in a basket, so to speak. So here's where I'm at currently. I know we're all excited and we're gearing up for next gen, and I know we're all doing a lot of preparing and thinking about what we're going to be doing for next gen, whether you're going with the Xbox Series X, whether you're going straight PC, whether it's going to be the PS5, where are the games going, what are we getting. It's a lot of excitement, and I know this time doesn't come too often, but it's important for me to take a moment and reflect on this current generation before it ends, because this has been one of my most defining generations. Now, I guess in my lifetime, I've seen everything from the Game Boy to the Nintendo 64 to the birth of the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, the Dreamcast, and it's a lot to sit here and think about, but at the time I didn't have the platform that I have now to be able to sit and talk about these things. So I figured I'd begin prepping for the next generation of gaming by reflecting on a few key categories that just stood out personally for me now. I'm gonna do a series of videos, I guess one each for categories such as, my standout shooter, my standout RPG, my standout action game, the most overlooked, etc., and of course, my personal highlight of a generation. I'm not gonna dick around here. This video is really special to me because I have the opportunity to share this story with somebody, and even if it's just a couple of people that watch the video, it still means a lot for me to finally be able to talk about this the way that I want to. I played a lot of games over this generation, which spans probably the last 8+ years, and there have been quite a few gems just scattered throughout. But if I'm being completely biased and talking purely from the heart, then I have to tell you this. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, is my highlight of this generation. I mean that with the most sincerity that I could possibly give you. This is it. And I know this is a lot coming from me, who championed for Fallout all throughout this generation, but this is it. I've thought extremely long and hard about this, and I know by all means it's certainly not the best game out of everything. I know we got Tsushima on the horizon along with Cyberpunk, and you all know how I felt about Spider-Man, and we're gonna get to that. That's down the line. I know this generation will end strong, but let me make this extremely clear. If my opinion means anything at all, and if it didn't, you wouldn't be here, but listen carefully. If it means anything, Phantom Pain is the best game I've played this generation. I've spent my lifetime of 20+ years watching my uncles and aunts play games, but the one that defined my childhood the most and really kick-started my love of gaming for me was Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater way back on the PlayStation 2. I obsessed over this game day and night. I mean, every single day, whether I had school, whether I had to go to my aunt's house, whether I had to go visit my parents when they got divorced, every single day. Hideo Kojima and that fucking devil studio Konami created a world that was unlike anything I had ever seen before at the time. It had an active camo system that changed based on what you wore and the environment standings around you, a system that allows you to capture and eat animals for survival, an active injury repair system that varied based on the injury that you got, and it had a story of betrayal and resentment that left me in literal tears by the time it was all said and done. And if you ever get to play this game, or if you just YouTube the cutscenes, the final confrontation between Snake and the boss is heartbreaking. It is such an emotional experience, and it brings out all the efforts you put forth throughout that game, and I fucking cried finishing that game. I know it's sounding like I'm rambling, but bear with me here. That game to me is perfect to the point now where I can still replay it for hours on end, but something hindered it for me. I could feel it then. I know it now that I'm able to express it now that I've gotten my hands on what we have here, but it was unfinished. It's not unfinished in the sense that I haven't finished the game. I beat the game so many times, it's not even funny, but it's unfinished in the sense that I could tell Kojima was limited by lack of supportive hardware and proper funding. I could tell that his vision for what it was supposed to be wasn't ready at the time for the tech that we had. I promised myself back then that I would play every single game Kojima touched to see if he ever reached the pinnacle I know he was meant for. I know this sounds like a love letter to him, but guys, you gotta understand, he's my favorite developer. He's the person that's inspired me most gaming wise, and he's someone that I not only strive to meet, but I hope that I can form a true... I want to work for him, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, I want to see what makes him tick. I want to talk to him. It's almost like a mentor type of deal. Like, I really want to learn everything that he's able to learn over his time with this industry and just see how he does what he does. When Metal Gear Solid 4 dropped, I thought he had finally had it, but it was just off. It just didn't feel right, and that was back on the PS3, and we're talking about kickstarting power as far as consoles go, but the PS3 was getting blown out of the water by the 360. It just wasn't there tech-wise, and 4 was good, but it didn't do it. It's still missing something. Fast forward into March 2014, I remember I was coming from McDonald's and I pulled into the apartment complex where I was living with my mom at the time, and I get a call from a close friend of mine from work, and literally, word for word, they said, and I quote, "Get your ass to GameStop, Metal Gear is back." Just to put things in perspective, the last full-fledged console game I think was 2008 when 4 dropped, so it had been a while since I had quenched that thirst. Kept up with a few of the PSP releases, but I mean, while they were cool, it's not the same as a full console experience. Anyways, March 2014 brings me Metal Gear Ground Zeroes. This game was to be the prologue, or super weirdly high-priced demo showcasing what Metal Gear was going to be from this point on. I remember loading it up and getting through everything in the intro. Snake finally comes into the screen and he just says, "Kept you waiting, huh?" And I fucking cried. The graphics were the best I had seen at the time, and the way it moved from the diving to the sprinting to the way the rain poured and wicked off the stealth suit, it was just mesmerizing. I don't want to get too much into its story since I think it's something that should be experienced as a whole, but it finally made me realize that this generation is the one that Kojima is going to finally utilize to the fullest potential. This is what I've been waiting for. And I shit you not, a year later, September 1st, 2015, I will never forget this date. At midnight, despite the fact that I literally had to come back into the store the next day for a shift, I was waiting in line at GameStop. I dropped an absurd amount of money on the game itself and the strategy guide. Back then, I believe it was for PS4. I should still have both the original copy of the game and the strategy guide on my shelf behind me to this day. I remember getting in the car and I put him in a seatbelt like a true fucking nerd, and I just sat in my Jeep and I just remained in the moment. I told myself, no matter what happens from this point, whether the game is complete garbage, whether it's straight shit, and I mean really shit, like brink shit, just terrible, I want to have this moment to myself. I wanted to remember this excitement that I'm feeling then forever. The footage you're watching now is of the intro to the game. It's captured on PC. I just picked it up for the Steam sale again, so this would be my 4th time buying it, I believe. I wanted you to see this particular part as I talked about why this game was such a monumental breakthrough for me, because I felt like the emotion here is only matched by the memory of release night. So that release night, this footage you're seeing, this is what I saw. This is as far as I got that night. And it was a journey. It really was. This was gonna be the end all be all for me. Kojima crafted 2 vastly open worlds that could be traversed as you saw fit, scattered across all its nooks and crannies and missions with loot, resources and blueprints, and outposts, animals, soldiers, and just fucking exhilarating opportunities wherever you turn. It was almost overwhelming for me the first time I dropped in, but over time, as I kind of learned how the game worked and moved, I learned to master its systems and mechanics, from the stealth basics like hiding and crawling in a good old cardboard box, to moving like a true part of the world. I could be a whisper at night, a true ghost story of a bullet that one lone soldier might have heard before his camp was shredded. I could be the light, the explosion of a C4 strapped Jeep, the trickster ballooning an unconscious soldier to return him to my base for recruitment, or I could just be. It was entirely up to me how I went about anything. You experience a few moments in gaming where an open world bears its boundaries, and you know that it's this vast land, but you can see the limitation, you can feel it, it takes you out of the immersion. But it's almost like Kojima said to me, here's the game, I've given you the pieces, how you set them up is up to you. I don't know if any of you ever had army men as a child, but if you did, you know what I'm talking about here. From setting them up around the house in sniper perches at dark corners of your living room, planting them in the carpet like they were crawling, and just letting your imagination run wild for hours. That's what I felt when I first started playing this game, to the very end of it. For the story, it was unmatched to me. Again, it's not that this is the best story in gaming, but it's that this is the story that resonates with me emotionally the most. Coming after the events of Ground Zeroes, it's a tale of being burned both literally and figuratively. To put it plainly, you're just rebuilding your base, rebuilding your army, but in actuality, you're rebuilding your life. I won't talk about the ending at all for Ground Zeroes or this game, but the game left me constantly asking, what's the length I'll go to restore what's rightfully mine? It felt exhausting at times. Hours spent watching enemy routes and guard shift changes, and at times it felt silly, like putting a hentai poster on a box and sliding it down the hill. Or one time I put C4 on the road and put the box in the road, so a patrol car came up and it just stopped. As soon as they got out to look at the box, kaboom! Done. You know, you could distract the guard or putting a balloon on a tank when they stopped to turn, but it kept me wrapped tight for those encounters by the likes of Quiet, the ferocious sniper assassin, or Colonel Volgan, who's this huge explosive fireball giant that literally burns everything in his path. I was hooked. Volgan is someone you encounter in Metal Gear Solid 3. And so to see him reimagined for this game, it was terrifying, and you'll see it in this footage. I was really hooked, indeed, to the point where I felt like its story was my story. I stopped thinking about what Snake would do in the situation and started asking myself, what are you going to do? I had my own emotions and personal vendettas from the events at Ground Zeroes and Peace Walker, and I was just satisfied to know that Kojima was going to give me everything I needed to carry my plans out however I see fit. In terms of just working, like just being a sound game, in my experience, I'm sure this is gonna ruffle feathers, and that's fine. I mean, I'm just speaking from personal experience here. I do not think I encountered a single bug in the game at all. I originally had it on PS4, the original PS4. I've upgraded to the Pro since, but I don't think it even hiccuped. The gunplay was the tightest it had ever been for the series. The movement system was fast, and it felt adaptive to my environment, from cliffs and diving and sliding, jumping sideways. CQC had finally been enhanced to the point where it no longer felt like an afterthought, but a fully intended combat system in case you just get surrounded. The game was just really technically sound, so I never encountered any issues when there was a lot happening on the screen, from the skulls surrounding you and running at a high speed, or the soldiers whenever I completely just fumble a mission and I gotta call in P-Quad to come and just shoot everything to shit, or Volgan and his explosions like you'll see here. I mean, it's gonna hiccup in this video because my hard drive is like shit and it's just making things weird in my PC right now, but I'm getting it replaced. But I didn't have an issue with anything, really. Gameplay really just depends on where you're at for your day. I don't mean like for your day in game, but it's just, what do you feel like doing? You usually would select the mission, whether it be a side mission or a main mission, and drop in on the landing zone, and then you just carry it out as you see fit, but you're not confined to that. You could drop into the map free will and just completely do whatever you wanted. The world is at your fingertips, from improving and expanding your base to capturing a linguistics expert to communicate with your captured soldiers better, or just plain extractions or interrogations of whatever or whoever is around you. It's packed with main missions and side missions alike for you to handle at your own pace and just experience the world that was created. If I disliked anything about the gameplay at all, I guess it was just the fact that it felt so monumentously one-sided when compared to the multiplayer. The online portion just felt so bare bones and tacked on at the last second that I almost would rather it had not been there, as it feels sincerely rushed and unfinished compared to the behemoth that is a single player experience. I just felt like the multiplayer was meant to be an integrated part of the open world, and whether it was due to funding or time constraints or Kojima's issues with Konami, it just didn't get finished like it should have. And while it's probably the best multiplayer that Metal Gear has ever had, it just, I mean, it's, if that makes sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, again, I know there have been better games to release. I know there have been bigger games to release and will release, but for someone like myself, who is the ultimate Metal Gear fan, this is as good as it gets. This is the alpha. Konami decided to get into a pissing contest with Kojima and forced him out, leaving this game unfinished, and it is still miles better than anything they've done or will do since. This was just, it was a journey for me, and I'm not talking about just through this game, but the collective emotional experience of that moment I felt playing Snake Eater for the first time in that small apartment with my mom on my bedroom floor. I will live and die by this statement again. Phantom Pain is my highlight of this generation. It won't be touched, it won't be beaten, it won't be altered. This is it. It is so damn good. From a gaming critic standpoint, from a series fan standpoint, to a military story fan standpoint, it's just really good. It's got countless characters that you encounter. It's got beautiful graphics. It's got really fundamentally sound gameplay. It's just, It's the trifecta of what you would expect for something you spend $60 on. If it was still $60 to this day, I would recommend it. But if you're going to end a generation and spend some time catching up on some games you might have missed before you make that jump to next gen, I highly recommend this game. Phantom Pain is practically perfect. So, again, guys, if you want to leave any feedback in the comments on anything that you want to know about it or anything you felt I didn't touch base on quite enough, I can. I'll probably, for my next video, talk about my standout horror game, because I know a lot of you came to my channel to see the horror games that I would play, so I'll get into that. But for now, just I hope you enjoyed everything I talked about today. Thank you for taking the time out to let me get emotional for a second, and here's to a new generation of gaming and hopefully more content for you all to view. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.